Welcome on in the room for Midweek Connection. I'm so glad you are here. Make sure that you spread some love around the room and just share that with everyone who is coming into the room. And also you can share this live stream directly to your friends. You can just hit the share button and then send it through Messenger. You can send it to your own Facebook page, and maybe somebody will join in. If you are joining through YouTube, you can also share this video after with someone. Maybe a blessing to somebody. If it's a blessing or a lesson to you, it might be to somebody else. I'm so glad that you are here, and I'm thankful for all of you. All right. Let's get into this. We are talking about the Tao Te Ching, of course, and the Tao Te Ching is a wonderful book that I have. Well, let me say this. It's a collection of writings, and it's a wonderful book. You can read the Tao Te Ching in an afternoon, but you can study it for a lifetime. You can read the Tao in an afternoon, but you can study it for a lifetime, because it truly is that kind of deep wisdom. And it's wisdom for everyday life, for everyday living. And that's what I like about it, because you know what, at the end of the day, if we share a bunch of stuff that's not practical, why are we doing it? If we can't practice it, there's no point, in my personal opinion. And these are things that can definitely be practiced, put into play in our everyday life, so that we can start living with the flow of life instead of pushing against the flow. Everything that we force creates a counterforce. And so instead of forcing our way through life, let's live our life in the flow of pure presence and in the flow of what I've come to know for me as God. The word God caused a lot of triggers for a long time because of my association with it in religion. But now for me, because I see God as that power that's in creation, the activity and the energy and the creative force of what I often refer to as the source. Knowing this in that intimate way is truly and absolutely a blessing. All right, let's see here. I'm going to just check in right now. Let me see if this will let me check in. Sometimes it does and sometimes it does not. See if it'll let me see who is on. And like I say, it may or may not. If not, that's fine. I was just going to try to give a shout out to folks, but make sure you're shouting out to each other and loving on each other. Let's see here. Well, I guess it's not going to let me. That's fine. That's fine. All right. We're going to go ahead and get into verse 67 of the Tao. 67. Tao Te Ching, once again, for anybody who is joining us and has not been with us on the study, Tao Te Ching simply means the virtue of the way. The virtue of the way. We're using predominantly Stephen Mitchell's translation of the Tao, but I found it intriguing myself to go and look up other versions, other translations, to see what they do with the words that were used in ancient China. This is back during the warring states in China is when this was written. And there was a deep sense in Lao Tzu, and the words Lao Tzu actually just mean old boy. In some translations it's old man, but in most of them it's old boy. I like that because it's almost like wise but youthful. So I like to say Lao Tzu was an old boy. So he had a youthfulness about him, and certainly had eternity within him, and sharing that eternal essence with the whole world through the Tao Te Ching, predating Jesus Christ by 565, 70 years. And during a time when the warring states, there was just a lot of violence, a lack of compassion. There was a lot of pain. And Lao Tzu wanted to essentially leave it all. And so he started to go. Before he could leave, the gatekeeper said, look, tell us your wisdom before you go. We want to know how to live our lives more peacefully like you. And so he wrote 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching. But he also is accused of writing the Wahoo Ching. And you know what? I've read it before in some of our meditations, but this is the Wahoo Ching. For everybody who's not heard of it and not familiar with it, I really like it too. And have used it tremendously. But the Tao Te Ching is just one I carry with me just about everywhere I go. In fact, I would suggest get a pocket-sized Tao Te Ching and just carry it with you. You'd be surprised at just the energy that's in it. All right. Verse 67 of the Tao. And if I was going to title this evening, Tao 67, I would title it Living the Three Treasures of the Way of Tao. Verse 67 says, "Some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty, but impractical. But to those who have looked inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. And to those who put it into practice, this loftiness has roots that go deep. I have just three things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These three are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and in thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world." Now, let me look at verse 67 in a different translation. And this is a translation and it actually doesn't say who translated this, but this is a different translation. It's one that I go to quite often, actually, and I like this translation as well. "The whole world says that my way is great, like nothing else. It is great because it is not like nothing. Because it is, let me start over. The whole world says that my way is great, like nothing else. It is great because it is like nothing else. If it were like everything else, it would long ago have become insignificant. I have three treasures that I cherish. The first is compassion. The second, moderation. The third is not claiming to be first in the world. By compassion, one can be brave. By moderation, one can be generous. By not claiming to be first in the world, one is capable of ruling. But to be brave without compassion, generous without moderation, and rule without refraining from being first in the world are certain deaths. So those who have compassion when they do battle will be victorious. Those who likewise defend themselves will be safe. Heaven will rescue and protect them with compassion." Another translation says, "Heaven will be with them." Those who are compassionate, who live in moderation, and those who live humbly. Now, these are the three things that I would say let's focus on this evening. Compassion, moderation. In some other translations it says frugality, and humility. There's a sense in me every single day now, as I grow and as I expand, and the heart space especially expands, that asks me to ask the universe, to ask God every day, how may I serve? Instead of striving to try to just live by ambition, I have been shifted toward a life of meaning. A life of meaning for me is much more important than just being ambitious, than trying to make a mark in the world where somebody can say, "Now, that's where John Scott was." My desire instead now is to serve. How may I serve the greater good? And so when I read this verse, that's what I'm brought back to, those simple words that I use daily. How may I serve? And so let's look at compassion, because to me, compassion is deeper than love. The word love has been used, misused, and retranslated, and has been abused in so many ways that, when we think about love, there's a lot of different places our mind will go. But compassion, and I love how the Dalai Lama says, compassion is not a luxury. Compassion is a necessity. And I've said this to you before, compassion to me gives me the ability to compass the world with loving awareness. Compassion gives me a deep sense of sympathy and a deep sense of oneness. Compassion invites me to see myself in the other and to see the other as divine. And this is one of the reasons I think it says, by compassion you can become brave. Someone who's compassionate can be brave. These are the three treasures. The first one is compassion. This is why this center is called One Love Spirit Center. And when we speak of love, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm not talking about just that whole thing of, well, yeah, I love cheesecake. I'm talking about a deep sense of compassion and love that makes us realize we are one love. In fact, type that into the comments if you will. I am one love. I am compassion itself. That's the natural flow of life. And compassion gives you the ability to start moving away from judgments and to start moving away from separateness. This causes the ego to lose its mind. The ego needs you to hold on to a sense of being separate. It wants to have personal identity. And it wants you to think in terms of being individual rather than being a part of the whole. It invites you to think of yourself as the wave instead of understanding that your truest element is the water. We've been dealing with this in our meditations in the mornings, talking about how I can understand that even though I'm waving at life, we watch waves in the ocean, and I've asked myself, does that wave realize that at its base, that its basic nature is water? It's not just a wave. It's water. The activity looks like a wave, but its basic element is water. Your basic element is goodness, godness, divinity. You are the presence of God in the earth. So in that recognition, I can make waves even in life and make a difference, and I can make a mark, and I can be successful. But I need to remember always to return to that simple thing, compassion. Compassion. Number 2, moderation. Frugality. Being moderate. Now, there's a lot of different places we could go with this, but I want to go ahead and move toward the points that I wanted to make this evening. Frugality, moderation, and then humility, of course. Let's look. I wrote these down. Number 1, how can I put this verse, this Tao verse, to work in my life? Number 1, learn to live in harmony with the way. Every time you feel a sense of separation and you feel a sense of angst and you feel a sense of judgment, remind yourself to return to the way. Make it a practice to return to the way. I mentioned to you before that Pema Chodron talks about, she does that just like me practice, where when she's passing judgment on someone else, she'll throw it back and she'll say, yeah, but you know what? Just like me. When you feel like you're coming in from an angle of I'm better than someone else, just like me. So live in harmony with the way. Extend your compassion to all of life. And that includes those that you disagree with politically. That includes those that you disagree with religionally and regionally and socially. The people that you disagree with. I mentioned it last week. One of the things that we have a hard time doing is not judging people because they're living, and I mentioned it during our 7 deadly sins, where I said that one of the 7 deadly sins was essentially me not wanting someone else to live their life the way they live their life. That was a sense of wrath. I'm trying to keep from, because I disagree with the way they live. Being able to let go of that is the power of compassion, and being able to extend that compassion to all of life, to the trees, to the grass, to the bugs, to the animals, to the two-legged walking around animals, to people who are outside of your scope of tribe. To be able to extend that compassion to everyone. That's really my work to do. And I'm working on this, y'all. I don't speak to you as someone who has attained all of this and someone who's arrived at it. I'm speaking to you as somebody who's on this journey with you. Our arms are locked. We're locked arms together, walking together. I'm not walking out ahead of you. I'm not higher than anyone else. We're all walking each other home. That's essentially what's happening. And I'm reminded by Ram Dass, who also appeared in my meditation just earlier this week and was laughing at me about something that I won't go into right now, but was really laughing at me. I'm reminded that he taught, and this is what he essentially said. He said, anything in me that is not love, that is not compassion, is my work to do. And so everywhere I find it, I'll ask myself, especially if I know there's something a little off, what's up with that? I'll ask myself, was that a loving action? Was that a compassionate action? Or was it self-serving? Was it judgmental? Was it condemning? Was it just being loose with my love? And if so, can I tighten that up? Can I bring that into a deeper, more expanded and extended level of compassion? Number 2, start seeing the strength rather than the weakness. Start seeing the strength rather than the weakness of humility. Notice the power of silence and loving confidence. Silent and loving confidence. Notice that the ocean, when it gets low, and it does, it stays low. The waves, yes, the waves make some moves, but notice that the ocean, for the most part, stays low. And yet everything in the world seeks it out. Especially those of us who love to go to the beach or love to go on cruises. We seek out the ocean. But water is always seeking the low point. I don't know if you've noticed that before, and I know I've shared this with you before. Some people get exhausted with it, but I can't help it. Every time I think about water, I think about, if you spray water up, I was pressure washing the house one time, and I noticed that when I sprayed the water up, it immediately started flowing back down toward the ground. The water is always willing to get grounded. It's always willing, and it's willing to be used to wash, but it's always looking for the low point. That humility. Notice the strength in humility. Instead of thinking that meekness is weakness, realize that humility is strength, it's power. It takes a lot to be humble, especially when you've gathered a lot to yourself. People who are ultra successful have an even higher or bigger challenge with being humble. But choose that powerful element of the Tao, Holy Spirit, to be humble. Number 3, and this one's a little longer. I wrote a few more things down with this. Choose to lose the need to be right. Choose to lose the need to be right. And this is what I'm going to invite us into. I'm going to invite us into a sense of moderation and humility through compassion. And so this came to mind. I'm inviting you to exercise the Tao, verse 67, this coming week. Exercise it this way. Notice when you're in a conversation, those moments when you have the opportunity to make a point. Notice when you want to keep talking, and instead of continuing to talk, take some of your talk time to listen. Make the point if you need to, and then hush and listen. Utilize some of your talk time to actually listen. Become humble and listen. Really listen. I wrote this down. If you can do that in a conversation, here's what happens. You will engage all 3 of the treasures that I've mentioned and are mentioned in this verse. Compassion for the person that you're speaking to. Frugality, being frugal or moderate. I like the word moderate. Moderate with your words. And humble in choosing not to be ahead or above the conversation. I'm learning more and more, folks, for me personally, that through the years I've learned a lot of stuff. Through the years I've pretty much been paid to sing and to talk. As a result of that, there's a lot that goes on in my head. I read all the time. I'm all the time studying. I'm meditating. I'm listening to talks. I'm listening to audiobooks from my teachers and those who come along in my life and I feel a special vibe with. I'm all the time taking in information. And so recalling that information is not that hard to do. And I've sort of, I guess, developed or honed the skill of the gift of gab. I can talk. Anybody around me and that's ever visited with me knows that I can talk. We can talk for hours. We really can. We can carry on a conversation. But I'm learning something about me that when I press into really living from a place of stillness and peace and a place of compassion and humility, I'm learning to be quiet. I'm learning that in conversations, when I have an opportunity to make my opinion known, and when I have an opportunity to really tell people what I think, I'm learning to slow that down a little bit, temper that back. Whoa, boy, reel it back in and listen. Listen, allow everything and everyone to be your teacher. So, in this conversation, just notice the next time you get into a conversation with someone, especially if it's about politics or religion or something that you know may lead, because there's some people that when you start the conversation, it's always going to lead to that same place. Some of you right now just got a vision of somebody in your mind. You know where it's going to end up leading to. You already know. You know the place. You know the mile markers along the way, and sure enough, here they go, and they're going to go again. And I'm going to tell them exactly what I think. Really. I'm inviting you, and see, this is going to blow it for you, okay? Because you're not going to be able to get this out of your mind. The next time somebody starts going down that same old road and you end up in a discussion that is an argument where there's going to be a winner and a loser, but there won't be any progress made, you know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I need to be looking myself in the mirror here. It's going to lead there. That the conversation always goes there. It could be with your parents, it could be with your siblings, it could be with somebody at work, it could be with your partner, it could be with your children, who knows? It could be that person who's on a different political plane than you are. Notice it, because when that conversation comes up, engage all three treasures: compassion for that person who is speaking, moderation with your words, and humility in choosing to not be ahead or to conquer or to be above the conversation. This is magic. I'm telling you, it'll give you a much more peaceful life. It'll lead to less arguments, and all of a sudden you'll start noticing that wisdom begins to set in, and stillness begins to set in, and peace begins to set into your life. Meaning. The ability to compass everyone with loving awareness. Moderation makes you more generous. Compassion brings more peace in the world. And humility. Here's a little side note on humility. The best way to take a giant leap forward is to get low. Any Olympic jumper will tell you that. To get low means to jump high. Some of my lowest points in my life, where I've had the most pain, the most heartache, the most embarrassment, have been the very things that springboarded a fresh evolution of spiritual awakening. So allow yourself to be compassionate, moderate, and humble. This will bring a more peaceful life into existence. Take a few moments, if you would, and just breathe in. I choose compassion, and I choose moderation. I choose humility. I let go of the need to be right. I ask, how may I serve? I know that I'm a divine being having a human experience, and I know that within me lies the ability to live as the Tao is, to live a life that is full of the truth that makes me free. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I am thankful. Yes, yes, yes. All right. I want to say a very special thank you to all of you who continue to support this ministry with your gifts and your talents. Those of you who are willing to give have various ways to do that. Through our P.O. Box, of course. That's P.O. Box 564, Gray, Georgia. But also through PayPal and through Venmo. And those of you who use Cash App or Zelle, reach out to me if you want to give that way. We
Hi,
can make that happen.
I'm Donna Miller. I am the treasurer for One Love Spirit Center. I want to personally thank everyone who's made any kind of contribution financially to One Love Spirit Center. We really appreciate your gifts, and we could not bring you our weekly services if we did not have support. So thank you. One thing that has come to light is that a lot of people donate through PayPal or Venmo, and we do not get your address or email address when you do that. And we would like to reach out and say thank you to you. So if you could please, through one of our group messages, send us your name and address and email if you're more comfortable with that, so we can have that and reach out to you from time to time. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to tell you that I love you, I love you, I love you, and we will see you in the morning, bright and early. Thank you for being here. Now go and make it a great evening. See you in the morning. Peace.